Part 157. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 1561. When all the 15 watermelons in the bamboo basket were dug up, the 4 imperial physicians would not let the maids and the servants intervene. Can this be used to make medicine? Even imperial physician Lu couldn't help laughing. This medicine is really weird. Man Bao said, aren't many medicines in this world weird? Xiao Yuanzhang said with a smile, this is a weirder kind of weirdness, but it's not particularly weird. You are still young, and you will know when you grow up a little bit. This world's weird medicine, there are more prescriptions. Man Bao nodded. After filling in the 15 melons, Xiao Yuanzhang and the others tied the shells with thin wooden sticks, and then carefully put them into the bamboo basket and said, send it back to the Taiyuan hospital. Pay attention, in this case, Tai Lao Lu and Tai Fang will take care of it. Imperial Physician Lu and Imperial Physician Fang responded, and together they sent the watermelon back to the Imperial Hospital. Man Bao also took out his large porcelain bowl from the ice basin and wrapped it in a cloth to go back to Chongguan Museum. Xiao Yuan twitched the corners of his mouth as he watched, but said nothing. Zhou Man didn't go back to Chongguan Museum all night, and even the prince was not in the East Palace. Bai Shan didn't say anything, and he was very worried. Because of the worry in his heart, he was in a bad mood. There was a classmate in the same class who made trouble with him, so he couldn't hold back his anger. So when Man Bao came back from Daming Palace holding a big porcelain bowl, Bai Shanzheng didn't talk to anyone with a sullen face. Lu Huan looked at the frightened man on the side, but Bai Erlang and Yin Or adapted well, ignoring him to play his own books and read his own books. Bai Shan was sulking by himself. Lu Huan looked left and right, not daring to disturb Yin Or who was holding the book, so he poked Bai Erlang and asked in a low voice, do we really care? Bai Erlang followed his gaze to take a look at Bai Shan and said indifferently, don't worry, he will be fine by himself. Yin Or also raised his head from the book and said with a smile, just leave him alone for a while. Lu Huan felt that they were thinking too much, but he had nothing to do. When he was struggling, he saw Zhou Man jogging into the hospital with a smile in his arms. His eyes suddenly lit up, and as soon as he got up, Bai Shan was already up to him. He looked left and right and saw that Bai Erlang and Yin he didn't move. Bend up. There were many people who listened with their ears pricked up like him, and even the people sitting quietly in the next room couldn't help leaning out of the window. The emperor was ill, or seriously ill. Maybe only the courtiers knew about it outside the palace, but most of the people in the palace knew about it. Especially those who live in this Chongguan pavilion are not the heirs of the crown prince, or the sons of the powerful and powerful in the court, and no one is stupid and sweet. Everyone dared not talk about it openly, but in private they all felt that the emperor was more fortunate this time. I heard that even the Duke of Zhao, Lord Wei, and others went to Daming Palace to guard him. Only when the emperor died, the ministers in the court would go to guard the bed, of course, not only for the emperor, but more for the country. If the emperor is really who should succeed the throne, and what regulations should be, these ministers have to deal with it in person. At this time, seeing Zhou Man Dian, who went to treat the emperor's illness, ran back, the people in Chongguan Museum who were not well informed naturally couldn't help but pay attention to her. Of course Bai Shan knew this, he wanted to take Man Bao to another place to whisper, but when he saw her smiling face, full of joy and excitement, he grabbed her arm and stopped, and directly standing in the yard and asking her, why are you back? Man Bao said, Your Majesty's illness has stabilized and I will come back. She shoved the cloth bag in her arms into Bai Shan's arms and said, I'll bring you back a big bowl of watermelon. Bai Shan felt that the cloth bag in his arms seemed to be a little cold, and asked, is it frozen? Man Bao nodded. As soon as these words came out, Bai Erlang and Lu Huan immediately jumped up to join in the fun, and Yin Or both put down their books. The 4 of them opened the cloth bag under the porch, and they saw that what was inside was a porcelain bowl. It was completely a porcelain jar. Open the lid, there is a large piece of red melon flesh inside, and a trace of cool air emanates from the inside. Yen-or couldn't help but ask, "How many melons did you dig?" Man Bayadao, "I only dug 2, but there are 5 melons in total. I dug 2 or 3 pieces of melons that I think are delicious. You can taste them." After talking about seeing Yen-or staring, she hesitated for a while and then asked, "Do you want to eat too?" Yen-or slightly looked away, but couldn't help but look back and asked, "Can I eat it?" Man Bao said, "Eat a small piece, but let it cool down before eating." Bai Shan looked at the melon in his hand, then looked at Yen-or again, and couldn't help but ask with a smile, "Would you like to put it in the sun and eat it hot?" Man Bao lowered his head and thought about the feasibility. "Maybe I can take a little more." Crowd. Even Yen-or couldn't help but look away. However, in the end, the 4 of them chose a piece of watermelon and put it on a plate to bask in the sun. Yen-or waiting for the watermelon in the plate to heat up. Bai Shan and Bai Erlang and Lu Huan had already eaten each one with a spoon. Everyone who is secretly paying attention to the situation here. Why don't you continue to ask, a person as big as His Majesty, oh, no, is such an important person, how could you just say a word? It's not too important in comparison, isn't it? Feng Zonping couldn't help pulling Yi Xiang out. The corner of Bai Shan's mouth was slightly raised, and he generously invited him to eat melon together. Feng Zonping accepted it, and after eating a piece, he asked Man Bao, "Why don't you eat it?" Man Bao touched his stomach and said, "I've eaten too much. If I eat more, my stomach will break." Although she really wanted to eat again. Feng Zonping couldn't help but ask curiously, "Didn't you go to Daming Palace to see a doctor for His Majesty, why did you eat cold melon?" Man Bao said, "We use watermelon as medicine, so Master Gu sent a lot of melons. It would be too wasteful not to eat it. It's hard for everyone to imagine how many melons this is." Feng Zonping glanced at Bai Shan, and seeing that he didn't mean to speak, he could only ask the many eyes behind him, "How is your Majesty's illness?" Man Bao said cautiously, "It's much better, and I should be able to go to court in 2 days." Before leaving Daming Palace, Xiao Yuanzheng had already taught her that His Majesty's condition should not be leaked too much. Although Man Bao already had experience in dealing with the prince's condition, the emperor seemed to be more important than the prince, so she was more cautious. Seeing that she said a word but didn't say a word, everyone felt unbearable in their hearts like a cat's paw, but Feng Zonping also stopped when he clicked, and did not ask any further questions. Everyone felt regretful that they didn't even ask Feng Zonping anymore. Others were not familiar with Zhou Man, and it was even more difficult to rashly ask about such private matters. "Yanu Lake is really beautiful, I decided to stay for 2 more days, ha 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 ha." Next update around 6 p.m. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 1562. When Bai Shan sent Man Bao back, he asked on the way, "What happened to the emperor?" "Cold and heat alternated, tonsils, throat inflammation." Bai Shan didn't stop, and asked directly, "Can a sore throat be seriously ill?" Man Bayadao, don't underestimate throat inflammation. Severe throat inflammation can cause otitis media, pneumonia, and constant high fever. Burning can even burn people to death. Ordinary people often think that a sore throat is not a big deal, but doctors know that many diseases start from this small symptom. There are many adults and children who died of high fever, especially children. Why do they say that raising children will not stand until they are 8 years old? It is because young children often have fever, and every fever may lead to death. So doctors never dare to underestimate any kind of inflammation, especially throat inflammation. Because there was only Bai Shan, Man Bao told him about the emperor's condition in detail, and said, "In 2 days, your Majesty's illness should be eradicated. Even if it does not stop, it will be able to go to court in 2 days. But the emperor went to court a day earlier than Manbao thought, not because of how hard he was really, but to calm people's hearts. So after putting on the patch for another day, he felt that there was no obvious discomfort in the throat, and he went up. Of course, the emperor, who dared not to shy away from medical treatment, still put on the medicine sticker, so the civil and military people of the whole dynasty saw the medicine sticker on the emperor's neck and silently looked away. After the emperor went to court, he escorted the crown prince into the study and gave him a coolie account. Then he threw his sleeves back to the bedroom, and said to the queen, not very happy, "This medicine sticker is good for everything, but it doesn't look good. I don't know how many people are staring at my neck." The queen smiled and said, "Your Majesty will endure it for 2 more days." Xiao Yuanzheng didn't say it, "You can go after 2 more days, otherwise it will not be good if you take too much medicine." The emperor said, "Although the medicinal juice is unpleasant to drink, it will be finished after drinking it. No one can see it. This medicinal paste." The queen directly broke his fantasy, "How about your Majesty wrap a hair around your neck?" "Forget it, because he is ill, there can only be an ice basin in the hall at the moment, and he wraps the hair around his neck, is it going to heat to death?" The emperor stopped talking, and the empress said, "Is there still worry about the mother? Since your Majesty feels better, then let's go see the mother." The emperor thought about it and nodded. "Mingda and the others were also frightened the other day, right? Why don't you just ask them to go to the queen mother's place for a meal?" The queen glanced at the emperor and nodded slightly. So when he had lunch at noon, the prince not only saw Mingda, Chang Yu, and the 5th prince in the palace of the queen mother, but also saw the 3rd child who was in confinement. The prince glanced at the 3rd child and looked away, while several younger brothers and sisters stepped forward to salute the prince. The prince returned the ceremony with them and went to see the queen mother. The queen mother was holding the emperor's hand to teach him a lesson. "This time, you can't avoid the disease and avoid the doctor. Since the doctor has prescribed medicine, how can you not take it? How will they learn in the future?" The emperor lowered his head and listened, and when he saw the prince coming, he said to him, "Dalan, come and talk to your grandmother." The prince came forward, and the queen mother asked him, "Where is your daughter-in-law?" The prince said, "The sun is shining outside, she has a hard summer, and you can't put too much ice in the palace, so the grandson didn't let her come." The queen mother nodded and sighed, "The weather is relatively hot this year. This is still in the Daming Palace. If it is in the East Palace, I am afraid it will be even hotter." She said, "She has a big belly right now. She can't come out if she doesn't come out. You should be more considerate of her recently, don't make her angry, and let her give birth to a healthy and lively grandson. The prince should go." Seeing that they were all well behaved, the queen mother slowly became happy. After looking around, she saw that the emperor's face was no longer ill than the previous 2 days. Although there was still a medical patch on his neck, he no longer had a fever, and his eyes were no longer hot. Famous. The queen and Mingda, who were always in poor health, looked much healthier, not to mention the prince. Their spirits were not the same as before, and their first child would be born in 4 months. Although it is not certain whether this birth is a boy or a girl, as long as the first child is born, there will definitely be more in the future. The queen mother's heart gradually calmed down, and she had to sigh, although Zhou Manchu is young and impulsive, his medical skills are indeed good. The emperor and the prince couldn't help but nodded together. The queen and Mingda glanced at them and thought it was strange, how could Zhou Man be impulsive? Then the queen mother expressed her dissatisfaction with the other imperial physicians in Xiaowen's waiting hospital. "Zhou Sun is younger than them, and she knows how to study medical skills hard. I heard that every day I read medical books in the Chongguan Museum, I will see the building closed. I have never seen Xiao Yuanzheng, they work so hard." This time even the emperor had to be rescued by Zhou Man, the queen mother, the Queen Mother was in a very complicated mood. The Emperor had heard Zhou Man and Xiao Yuanzheng discuss the prescription, so he knew the inside story. He smiled and said, "Mother, Zhou Man is still young, the medicine paste recipe she donated this time is good, but the decoction is the medicine was prescribed by Xiao Yuanzheng and the others, she still has a lot to learn. Xiao Yuanzheng and the others have read a lot of medical books and have a lot of things to do, so they don't need to go to the library from time to time. The Queen Mother is very stubborn, and the older people are, the more stubborn they are." She stubbornly said, "Then why didn't they come up with a medication sticker this time? And the acupuncture is also Zhou Manlai." The Queen Mother did not see Xiao Yuanzheng and them prescribing the prescription, and the Emperor also took the decoction before, and the effect of the decoction was obviously not very good, so the Queen Mother stubbornly believed that the Emperor's illness was cured by Zhou Man. At this time, the Empress Dowager's feelings for Zhou Man were more complicated, so complicated that she was not willing to deal with the Emperor who didn't care for her body, so she skipped him and pulled the prince to talk. "Emperor." Mingda sat on the side obediently, and took this opportunity to complain quietly, "Grandmother, Zhou Man cried yesterday." The Queen Mother was only interested in Zhou Man's medical skills, not her, so she didn't respond. Chang Yu didn't know about this, and asked curiously, "Why is she crying?" Mingda talked about her dispute with Imperial Dr. Lu and said, "I heard that the medical books and prescriptions she brought out are excellent, and the patch that the father is using now is just one of them." The Empress Dowager became thoughtful and asked, "Zhou Man's two apprentices are from the Zheng family of Ji Shitang?" Mingda nodded, replied yes, and said softly, "I heard her say that one is the medicine boy Ji Shitang gave her before, and the other is the son of the shopkeeper of Ji Shitang." The Queen Mother said, "Ji Shitang can do business." Everyone couldn't figure out whether the sentence was praise or ridicule, so they didn't say anything. The Queen Mother thought for a while and then said, "Zheng Tai doctor is still very good to see a doctor. This Tai hospital is the Emperor's imperial hospital, and it is not his family's words. What is the surname of the person who comes in?" You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 1563. She turned her head to the Emperor and said, "You look suitable, as long as you have the ability, you can take it in, or else the capable ones will fall outside. Isn't it that the pearl has been left behind?" The Emperor replied obediently yes. The Queen Mother was satisfied. Although these two were Zhou Man's apprentices, they were also members of the Zheng family. When they learned all her skills, What about teachers and students? Are there still few teachers and students who broke up because of differences in political views and interests? Even the enemy of the Queen Mother agreed to give Zhou Man 2 places in the imperial physician's office, so this matter was settled. When Yunfan County Master, who was about to get married, heard about this matter, it was already a certainty. She was quite annoyed and threw the wedding dress she just tried onto the side. Princess Yazhu handed over the wedding dress to the palace maid for storage, sat beside her and said, "You are going to get married in 2 days, why are you angry at this time? Why is the imperial grandmother getting closer to Zhou Man? Princess Yazhu has long lost the spirit of last year. Time is really a strange thing. She used to hate Zhou Man and Bai Shan, but now she met her from a distance in the palace, and she didn't have much trouble anymore. The days will go on, and she now hopes that the remaining pair of children will be safe and sound. So she doesn't want her daughter to pay too much attention to Zhou Man. She is about to get married. In the future, she and her son will also go to Dizhu, and Zhou Man and Bai Shan may stay in the capital forever, or even stay near the emperor and the prince. Even if their family is related by blood to the emperor, they are probably not as close as Zhou Man and Bai Shan, 2 strangers, so why bother? Why bother trying to provoke them again? The more time passed, the more Princess Yizhu thought about it. She and her children hated Zhou Man and Bai Shan for killing their husbands and children, and they might even hate them for killing their fathers and mothers. So she persuaded her daughter, "You can get married with peace of mind and leave other things alone." Yunfan County Master could not control it even if he wanted to, because the Empress and Empress family lived in Daming Palace, and although their family was attached to the Empress Dowager, they did not go to Daming Palace this time. Daming Palace is cool, but there are few palaces. The Emperor brought the Queen Mother there to show his filial piety. What should he do with them? The Empress Dowager obviously knew this, so she didn't bring the three princesses of Yizhu, and Yunfan wanted to get married, so it was actually more convenient to be in the Taiji Palace. Although Yunfan County Lord's wedding was not very grand, the Queen Mother personally returned from Daming Palace to give her the wedding. Yunfan County Lord got married in the palace early one morning when the sun was shining brightly. The Emperor, as his uncle, also went out for a while, and then asked the fifth prince to go with the Zinking County king to deliver the wedding. This matter has nothing to do with Manbeo and the others, let alone Manbeo. In the East Palace, apart from the Crown Prince and the Crown Prince, no one has asked for a wedding drink. The main reason is that the Emperor's illness is just right, and the Lord of Yunfan County is the daughter of the King of Yizhu. Neither the imperial court nor the palace wants to make a big deal. Manbao had even heard one ear. The one who hated her was the King of Yizhu, not the Princess Yunfan. Although she didn't like him, she didn't take him to heart. She wants to go home now, because Yin Or invited them to eat his sister's wedding wine, which happened to be on the day of Huomu. It was the first time that Manbao saw people in Beijing get married, so he was very interested. Bai Shan and Bai Erlang were also interested, and asked Yin Or about the dishes they usually have when they eat wine. Yin Or, how could he know? Anyway, he has a lot of things he can't eat, how could he care about such a thing? But this time he could only care, so when he got home, he asked his grandmother, "The fourth sister is married, is the menu ready at home?" Mrs. Yin was surprised that he would ask this, and smiled. The menu was determined as early as a month ago. "What, do you want to see it?" Yin Or said with a stern face, "Let me take a look." Not only Mrs. Yin, but also Siniang Yin were very happy and felt that they were being valued. Yin he took the menu and looked at it, silently wrote down a few dishes that Bai Shan and Zhou Man might like, and asked Chang Shao to send them a letter, so that they could just rest assured. Lord Yin married another daughter. Although she was still a concubine, the officials, noble families, and powerful people in the capital were very respectful. Whether they had a rest today or had to work overtime, they all took the time to visit in person. So Bai Shan's carriage was blocked when they turned from their street, and soldiers from Jingzhou Prefecture were directing the carriage. Bai Shan and Zhou Man lifted the curtain and glanced at it. It was estimated that it would take a while to get in, so they regretted, "If we had known we would walk here, it's not too far away." Bai Erlang said, "It's so ugly to walk on the street with a gift. I don't want to lose face." Bai Shan said, "You are really stupid, we can walk and let Daji drive the carriage to bring gifts." Manbao said, "Then we can get off now." Bai Shan thought about it for a while and thought it was a good idea. The main reason was that the sun was shining and they were staying in the carriage. The sun was shining on the carriage and the carriage was hot, and they were sitting in it like a stove. So the three jumped out of the carriage, blocked the sun with their hands, and walked forward. A man can walk much faster than a horse-drawn carriage. Daji just watched them all the way towards the gate of Yin Mansion, and disappeared after a while. The three walked to the gate of the Yin Mansion by themselves, and the three sons-in-law who were following their father-in-law to entertain guests unexpectedly saw someone walking, and gave them a rather novel look. When Yin Li saw it was them, he smiled and said, "Maybe I'm in the courtyard. I'll have someone lead you there." Ordered a servant and asked him to take people to the backyard. Yin Or's health was not very good. Not only Mrs. Yin, but also Yin Li dared not let him stand for a long time, so he picked up a few close guests at the gate in the morning. He went back to the yard to rest. The grievances between the three sons-in-laws of the Yin family and Zhou Man, Bai Shan, and Bai Cheng are not too early, but it seems that this is the first time they have officially met. Especially the eldest son-in-law of the Yin family, who had directly dealt with them. His original intention was to vent his anger on his brother-in-law, but as a result, he became a good friend himself, and even his daughter-in-law treated others with courtesy, and now the eldest son-in-law was more embarrassed. Fortunately, his father-in-law didn't pay attention to him, and the three Man Bao didn't pay attention to him either. Yin Or was sitting in his room in a daze, and when he saw them coming, he smiled, "Are you here?" Bai Shan nodded and asked, "What are you doing?" Yin He shook his head and said, "If you don't have anything to do, you'll be in a daze." He paused and said, "Last night, my father asked the old Dr. Tan to come and see me. He talked with me. He knew that I didn't want to talk about my relationship, and he has decided to leave the sixth sister at home to recruit children. See you tomorrow." Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 1564. Man Bao was surprised and asked, "Your sixth sister also agreed?" Yin nodded. "My father said, either join the army, or choose a concubine from some small family who can see through. My father is still young and should be able to take care of his grandson when he grows up." The three said, "Congratulations." Yin Or the corners of his mouth curled up, thinking that this was something to celebrate, so he said, "Let's drink a little wine later? Last time Man Bao seemed to have said that I could drink some Osman thus wine." Bai Shan and Bai Erlang looked at Man Bao together. Man Bao nodded, "You can still drink a little wine. Yin may be very happy, but Mrs. Yin is not very happy, but this is a decision made by her son and grandson, and she can't say anything." As soon as Lu Huan arrived, Yin He took 4 of his friends and sat at a table by himself. Feng Zhongping and a few classmates from Chongguan Hall sat with them, watching the 5 of them inexplicably raise their glasses to celebrate. Feng Zhongping asked Yin He, "Are you so happy that your 4th sister is married?" Yin Or asked, "Are you upset when your sister got married?" Feng Zhongping shook his head, "Not happy." He said, "I rarely see her when I get married, and she has to serve other people's parents and sons. What's there to be happy about?" Yin Wei was stunned and couldn't quite understand this. In his memory, his sisters always seemed to be worried about getting married. "Before getting married, I was worried that I would not be able to marry a good family, and after I got married, I was worried that I would be bullied by my parents and have no brothers to support." So he always worried about whether his sisters could marry a good in-laws, never thought that he would be unhappy after they got married. Because he is really happy. It's strange that there are people who are unhappy with such a happy event. Seeing Yin Or looking confused, Feng Zhongping said, "Your father and several sons-in-law have chosen well. Not only your brothers-in-law are obedient to your father, but your sisters-in-laws are also very good to them. Naturally you don't have to worry about this. Already, it can be said that the sons-in-law selected by Yin Li have a weak family background, and there is nothing wrong with the fact that they can't be fair and mutually beneficial with the Yin family. As for the wealthy and powerful families in the capital, who didn't say that they were close to their families? Even if they don't increase their marriage or marry at a higher rate, they must at least be evenly matched and can benefit from each other. Marriage has never been as simple as a man's marriage and a woman's marriage, but it is better to marry 2 surnames. Even Wei Ji, the wives of his 3 sons are all from famous families, and his own wives are all from famous families. Even if he came from a poor family. Feng Zhongping didn't know whether he was envious of the Yin family or sympathetic. Anyway, his mood was very complicated. Yin Or soon recovered and asked with a smile, "Your marriage is set?" Feng Zhongping sighed, "No." Bai Shan was curious, you are not too young, why are you still not engaged? Feng Zonping, it's not that I'm old, it's that you got engaged too early. Bai Shan, nonsense, look at senior brother Tang and senior brother Yang, they should have gotten married when they were your age. Feng Zonping was so congested that he didn't want to speak. Man Bao and Bai Erlang also looked at him curiously. Yin Or's gossip is well informed, no, it should be said that his sisters are well informed. He lowered his voice and asked, does your family want to tell you about the princess? Feng Zonping frowned and looked at Yin Or, you are a man, don't always mess with your sisters. Yi Ziang couldn't help laughing. Yin he glanced at him and said, what are you laughing at? Your family has been putting your marriage on hold, doesn't it want to give you Princess Shang? Yi Ziang stopped smiling. In addition to Yin Or, Man Bao 3 instantly ignited the fire of gossip, stared at the two of them and asked, so you are now rivals in love? Feng Zonping and Yi Ziang, God's rivals, they haven't even met the princess a few times. Man Bao tilted his head and wondered, which princess are you trying to talk about? It can't be Princess Mingda, she's a year younger than me, that's Princess Changjiao. Feng Zonping and Yi Ziang took up the teacup and drank tea together. Man Bao thought about Princess Changjiao's character, looked at the two of them left and right, and shook his head, you can't. Feng Zonping knew that Man Bao and Princess Changjiao were good friends, so he asked, then what do you think Princess Changjiao likes? Princess Changjiao likes that. Man Bao pointed at Yang Hishu, who was walking in not far away. Everyone turned their heads and looked back. Feng Zonping said, it's a coincidence, almost all the female relatives in Beijing like this. Bai Shan and the others burst out laughing. Yang Heshu and Tang He, who were entering the door, heard their laughter, turned their heads to look at them, stopped for a while when they saw them, nodded and said hello to a few of them, and then continued to go inside. Adults have an adult circle. Feng Zonping and the others are still sitting in the same position as the children. They all come with the adults in the family, and they can't become a person independently. Feng Zonping watched the two of them leave and sighed, I don't know when we can become people like them. Bai Shan is ambitious, I'll be a few years older. Feng Zonping turned his head to look at him, then looked at himself again, silently saying nothing. Tang He asked curiously, why does Zhou Man sit with them instead of going to the back house? Yang Hesha smiled and said, she's an adult now, so there's nothing wrong with being in the front. The men and women of this dynasty were not strictly guarded, and Zhou Man is still compiling the 5th grade. Sitting in the front with Yin or personally accompanying him, he may be more comfortable than sitting in the back house as a guest. After thinking about it, Tang He smiled and said, yes, Lord Yin has always been considerate. Zhou Man and his 3 daughters have had conflicts. Even if it is to avoid both sides, Zhou Man should be placed in the front. Yang Hesha nodded slightly. They are now sitting down to eat snacks and tea and wine. When the groom comes to greet the relatives, they have to help the Yin family to stop them. When the groom welcomes them away, they will stay for lunch. To go to the groom's official home for a meal. Of course, Feng Zonping, who is not very familiar with the Yin family's in-laws, will not go there. They hang out in the Yin family, listening to books and actors singing. In the afternoon, Yin or a few tired people left, and the guests of the Yin family slowly dispersed. Man Bao and the others saw the customs and rules of marriage in the capital, and they were satisfied, and they said goodbye to Yin or went home happily. And the families that were close to the Yin family also got the news from Yin Li that Yin Lai Yuniang wanted to recruit children, and left with the same satisfaction. Mrs. Yin heard the news from the front yard. Seeing that several ladies were already quietly inquiring with her, she knew that the matter was completely settled, and she sighed and braced herself to deal with it. Sister Yin's eyes were complicated, and her heart was even more complicated, but today was a good day for Yin Xiniang, and no one said anything. As for after that, even if they wanted to say something, they didn't dare to speak again when Yin Li was there. The Yin family was accustomed to obeying Yin Li's arrangement in everything. Oops, I almost missed this chapter. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 1565. Yin Xiniang was Yin Wuniang shortly after she got married. They were both in June, but one was in the middle of the month and the other was at the end of the month, and I don't know if it was intentional or not. Yes, Dajin has a summer vacation. Manbao and Bai Shan had just returned to the Chongguan Museum a few days ago, when Xiao Yuan Zheng told her that frost had formed on the skin of the watermelon. The palace announced a holiday. Manbao did not leave the palace, but asked Bai Shan and Bai Erlang to go to the Imperial Hospital to see the watermelon frost after returning. Hearing that she was so curious about the holiday, Xiao Yuan Zheng explained with a smile, the Imperial Court has summer and winter holidays every year. This year's summer holiday is earlier, because the Qin Tianjian said that the high temperature will continue for the next few days. However, other people have vacations, but our Taiyuan hospital can't all take vacations, and needs to take turns. Xiao Yuan looked at Manbao and asked with a smile, do you want to give Zhou Tai a try? Manbao doesn't want it. There are not many patients in the palace who need to hire a doctor. Instead of spending time in the hospital, she might as well go out and play. Even if you want to see a doctor, you can go to Jessie Dang. Ji Shitang was much more fun than Tai Hospital, so Manbao refused, saying that he was still young and was on duty for fear of accidents. Xiao Yuan Zheng believed that she was a ghost, and he had seen His Majesty, and who didn't know that she was brave. It can be seen that she is lazy and does not want to be on duty. Xiao Yuan Zheng did not force her, just shook his head slightly, and then said, the hospital has already negotiated, and I have also told His Royal Highness the Prince, as long as the watermelon frosting made is confirmed to be its effective, then the 2 quotas that were agreed before will be promised to you. He added, His Royal Highness has already asked people to build the Imperial Medical Office. Yiying utensils should be ready in September. If it goes well, a group of students should be recruited a few years ago. How is your book on acupuncture and moxibustion? Manbao said, it should be completed before August, but the physical therapy part I received from you may take a while. Xiao Yuan Zheng said, if you need any help, just say that there are still many people in the hospital who can use it. Manbao nodded. As he spoke, Xiao Yuan was opening the door of the pharmacy, and the 15 watermelons were placed on the innermost shelf. Imperial Dr. Lu and Imperial Dr. Fang were watching, and when they saw them coming, they immediately said, Yuan Zheng, Imperial Dr. Zhou, come and see, it started to separate out this morning, and now there are more and more. This was the first time Manbao had seen him. He leaned forward curiously and saw that the watermelon skin was covered with a layer of white frost, some of which almost turned into crystals. Manbao asked Keek to videotape, and then swept the white body with 3 imperial physicians. After all the watermelon frosts were swept down, the 4 of them sat at the table and stared at them. Manbao said, how can we prove that they are effective? Xiao Yuan Zheng said, the heat has been intense these few days. Not only in the palace, but also in the capital, many people have sore throats. Find some people to try it out and you'll know. Manbao hesitated, are you going to ask someone to test the medicine before you have tried the properties? Xiao Yuan Zheng said, don't worry, someone will try it, but no one wants to. There are still prisoners in the death row, so don't worry about Imperial Dr. Zhou. He often finds people to test medicines, and he is too familiar with this one. Manbao thought that she should bring a copy to Teacher Mo if the thing is true or false, let Teacher Mo know by looking at it. So Manbao pulled out a small porcelain bottle and filled some watermelon frosting. I'm going to bring some home to try. This time, a lot of frost came out, and it was not known whether it was true or not, so Xiao Yuan Zheng glanced at the bottle full of which she had taken away without speaking, nodded in agreement. Imperial physician Lu and the others were also very moved, but when they glanced at Xiao Yuanzhen's face, the intention was only intentional in the end. Xiao Yuan was collecting the remaining watermelon frosting, nodded to Man Bao and said, "Is Imperial physician Zhou going out of the palace?" Man Bao turned his head to look at the sky outside. Imperial physician Lu said, "It's getting dark, if you want to leave the palace, you have to hurry up, otherwise the palace gate will be locked. This summer vacation is going to be put on for 5 days, together with the rest of July." Man Bao didn't want to spend it in the palace, so he got up and said, "Then I'll leave the palace first." After saying that, he shoved the porcelain bottle into his arms and ran away. Xiao Yuan was waiting for her to leave and then said to Imperial physician Lu, "Go find some uncomfortable palace maids and waiters to test the medicine and see if it is right." Imperial physician Lu should go. Man Bao ran back to the East Palace with watermelon frost in his arms, and only left the palace after taking his own red ji. After leaving the palace gate, there was no one there, so she rode her horse and ran happily. When she got home, Bai Shan was surprised to see her. "Didn't you say you're not going to the palace today? Why did you come back?" "I'll be back soon." Man Bao handed over the horse to Lu Gui, took out a porcelain bottle from his arms and said, "Look, this is my newly made precious medicine. I heard it works." Bai Shan leaned up to take a look, and asked, "Have you tried it?" "No." Xiao Yuanzhang said he was looking for someone to test the medicine. Man Bao looked around and said in a low voice, "But I think it's too dangerous to find someone to try it directly." After saying that, Chong Bai Shan blinked. Bai Shan understood, lowered his voice and asked, "Do you want to ask Uncle Joe directly?" Although not, but now Man Bao is used to replacing her father's name with Keek, or the people behind Keek, so she nods. Bai Shan got excited and encouraged, "Then go back and ask, do you want me to guard the door for you?" "It's not necessary." Bai Shan said again, "Grandma has already made a reservation in Suanduguan to do things on the 14th day, and the family also bought some incense candles and paper money. Do you want me to bring some and burn them for Uncle Joe?" Man Bao, "No need." Bai Shan tilted his head, "Why, Uncle Joe, can't they receive it?" "How does Man Bao know? What if they can receive it, but she says they can't receive it? What if they don't burn it in the future?" So he struggled for a while and said, "It's not really." Bai Shan thought he understood, "Don't worry, it's not worth much, just buy some delicious and fun things for Uncle Joe and the others." So he made such a happy decision unilaterally. When Man Bao returned to the house, Bai Shan took a stack of paper money and burned it outside her door, and lit 2 candles. Zhou Lijun and Zhou Liru, who came home, both squatted and watched curiously, and asked curiously, "Little uncle, who did you burn?" "There is nothing to hide," Bai Shan said, "burn it for my father-in-law." "Isn't his father-in-law their uncle?" Zhou Lijun looked curious. "Today is not my uncle's death day, nor is it the Qingming festival and the Mid-Autumn festival, why burn paper money?" Bai Shan said, "This is my filial piety." Zhou Lijun and Zhou Liru thought he was strange, and when they looked up, they saw their sister-in-law was lying on the windowsill looking at them with a sad face. For some reason, Zhou Lijun wanted to laugh, so he ignored them, pulled Zhou Liru and left. At this time, I should be standing on Vawo Mountain to see the azaleas. See you at 6 p.m. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 1566. Bai Shan insisted on burning paper money for Zhou Yin, while Man Bao gave out a fingernail of watermelon frosting for Teacher Mo to identify the authenticity. Teacher Mo was stunned when he received what she had wrapped in paper and mailed it. He said, "This is what was written in an ancient book. We are now, well, some of the medicines we use now also contain watermelon frosting, but that's another form, forget it, I'll test it for you. Teacher Mo silently accepted the things, and went offline to test her. The laboratory is still very quick to do this test. The most important thing is that there is watermelon frost in that world, so there is data in the database. He compares. After coming out, I replied to Manbao an email, saying, although the quality is not very good, it is not as good as the current watermelon frosting, but yours is indeed watermelon frosting and can be used. When Manbao received the email, it was time for dinner at home. She followed Bai Shan to dinner and looked at the email absent-mindedly. Bai Shan turned his head and saw that she was about to hit a tree. He didn't even know if he turned a corner and knew that she was thinking about something, and was absorbed in it, so he could only stretch out his hand to pull her away and lead her to the dining room. After entering the dining room, Manbao regained his senses. Seeing that the Bai brothers were turning their heads to look at them, he quickly took his hand out of Bai Shan's. Bai Shan walked over Manbao without changing his face, and sat down in his seat. Seeing Manbao, Mrs. Lu smiled and waved, "Come and sit down, I guess you're coming over for dinner today, and you specially let the kitchen cook your favorite dishes." Manbao stepped forward quickly. Unless he happened to meet her sixth brother coming back to cook, Manbao would eat with the Bai family. No way, Auntie Rong's craftsmanship is much better than that of the fourth and fifth sisters. Mrs. Fang and Mrs. Lu also knew this, and they didn't force their sister-in-law to eat with them. To be honest, they thought their cooking skills were quite good. Of course, they were not as good as the eldest sister-in-law, but they were far better than the second sister-in-law. It's just that Manbao grew up eating his sister-in-law's meals and raised his mouth. Manbao sat down beside Mrs. Lu, who happened to be Zheng's opposite. She couldn't help but looked at her and looked at her again. Zheng Shi, who just ordered the soup to be served, couldn't help but ask with a smile, "Why do you keep looking at me?" Manbao asked, "Aunt Zheng, are you not feeling well?" Everyone couldn't help but look at Zheng Shi together. Zheng Shi was stunned and said, "It's okay, my throat is just a little uncomfortable." Bai Shan immediately thought of the emperor, and immediately sat up straight. "Mother, if you are not feeling well, you should ask a doctor." Zheng Shi couldn't help but said angrily, "What doctor please, isn't there a full treasure at home? And it's not a serious illness, it's just that the throat is a little uncomfortable." The emperor didn't have a sore throat at first, but it became like that. Bai Shan secretly complained, and then looked at Manbao. Manbao looked at Zheng Shi carefully and said to Bai Shan, "It's okay, I'll spray Aunt Zheng with watermelon cream later." When Mrs. Lu heard the words, she immediately looked at Manbao and asked, "Did you get that watermelon frosting?" Manbao nodded. When Manbaoxia came back a few days ago, she naturally told Mr. Zhuang about the transactions she made with the Taiyuan hospital. Mr. Zhuang knew about it, and Mrs. Lu also knew about it. Seriously, on the road that Manbao is walking now, neither she nor Mr. Zhuang can give her any good advice, except to make her not be pampered and arrogant in the palace. She thought it would take a while, but who knew that the child would come out now? Mrs. Lu looked at Manbao, and then at Bai Shan, who was indifferent, and felt that the future of her grandson might be a little difficult. She smiled and shook her head, and said to Manbao, "You can show your Aunt Zheng after dinner." Manbao smiled and said yes. Zheng's has no major problems, it's just that his throat is inflamed due to internal heat. Manbao prescribed a decoction, and then flicked a little watermelon frosting in her throat. "Don't say, it's a little bitter, but it's cool, and Zheng Shi is not used to it. But it may be the first time to come into contact with such medicine. The healing effect on the body is amazing." After drinking a bowl of medicine after dinner and playing a little watermelon cream, she could not feel the itching in her throat when she woke up the next morning. Any time is good. Manbao excitedly ran to see, seeing that the effect was as good as what teacher Mo said, and became happy. No wonder this medicine is so powerful. Although it is not as good as Sankai powder, its effect is not small. Zheng Shi also found it easy to use, except that the powder is a little bitter. There is nothing wrong with it. But what medicine is not bitter? Man Bao asked, is there any more? She carefully inquired about the feelings of the medication, and after writing down one by one, she gave Zheng Shi a half. Zheng Shi put away the medicine powder and asked, you ask so in detail, you haven't tried this medicine, have you? Man Bao smiled and said, Aunt Zheng, although I can't guarantee that you are the first person in the world to use this medicine, it must be the first person outside the palace city to use this medicine. Zheng, should she be happy? At this time, Xiao Yuan Zheng, imperial physician Lu and others in the palace also got feedback from the court lady they found. At this time of year, the summer heat is at its peak, and there are many people in the palace who are uncomfortable because of the heat, but some show it, and some don't show it. Most of them don't show it, and then endure it silently, or ask for a walk to the side hall of the East Palace, so that Imperial Physician Zhou or her apprentices can give a few injections for relief. When the Thai hospital wants to test medicines, many people have no choice. They will directly look for it from the lowest-ranking maids and chamberlains. They won't give Zheng's decoction like Zhou Man did, they are all watermelon cream used directly, so as to better verify the efficacy. The effect of the medicine is very pleasing. Xiao Yuan Zheng looked at their throats carefully, then felt the pulse and said, very good, the effect of this medicine is better than we expected. Imperial Physician Lu also stroked his beard and nodded, smiling, let's use it for a while, and see if there are any inapplicable places. If it works well, it can completely replace the medicine patch in the later stage, so that your majesty doesn't have to care about the unsightly appearance of the medicine patch. Xiao Yuan is nodding his head. They carefully discussed the amount and date of the test medicine, and then the three of them monitored their pulses respectively. Fang Tai said, yesterday evening Tai Lu asked, but the cream was made. Xiao Yuan Zheng said with a smile, it's not a secret either, he asked, and Imperial Physician Fang told him it was. When Imperial Physician Lu asked, he naturally wanted to be involved, but Xiao Yuan was answering this, obviously excluding him. Fang Tai understood Xiao Yuan Zhen's meaning, nodded, and then asked, I think this medicine has been inseparable. Post a medical book. Compared with this recipe, the whole volume of the medicine patch recipe is more important. Xiao Yuan Zheng said, wait for a vacation, I will ask when the time comes. He looked at Imperial Dr. Lu and said with a smile, perhaps Imperial Dr. Lu can also ask Dr. Liu's daughter. See you at 8 p.m. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 1567. Imperial Physician Lu said, I don't want to ask too much about the matters between their master and apprentice. Imperial Physician Fang smiled, believe it or not, not sure. Imperial Physician Lu couldn't tell from the smile on his face, but he was really bitter because he really didn't know. Sun Yang didn't like to talk to him about these things. Before Zhou Man confiscated her as his apprentice, she would carefully ask her about the medical principles she didn't understand, but after Zhou Man accepted her as his apprentice, Lu doctor girls rarely talk about Zhou Man and the medical principles they have learned from her at home. Some of the things mentioned must be things that can be inquired with a little care, and Imperial Physician Lu did not force the granddaughter after realizing it. Because he knew that since Sun Yang had entered Zhou Man's door, she had to make a choice, whether to be closer to Zhou Man or closer to the Lu family. After all, it is a skill. Although Imperial Physician Lu admires Zhou Man's medical skills, he can't do anything about peeping and stealing. Both grandparents and grandsons maintained a tacit understanding, so that the Lu Zhou family would not cause scandals in Xin Lingxing in the future. However, Zheng Gu and Zheng Xiao, who also worship Zhou Man as their teachers, have no such troubles, because Zhou Man and Ji Shitang are too close, and she originally came from Ji Shitang. He started to cooperate with Ji Shitang several years ago. Zhou Man gave Ji Shitang a lot of things, and Ji Shitang also taught Zhou Man a lot. Therefore, the two brothers of the Zheng family can not only represent Ji Shitang in Zhou Man, but also represent Zhou Man in Ji Shitang, making the relationship between Zhou Man and Ji Shitang even closer. The Lu family is different, they have almost no entanglement of interests. Of course, whether Xiao Yuan Zheng and Imperial Dr. Fang believe it or not, he does not know, and Imperial Dr. Lu also knows that this kind of thing cannot be explained. At this time, Man Bao was also talking to her four apprentices in Ji Shitang. She told them about Zheng Gu and Zheng Xiao getting the places, and encouraged them, "You are all over the age, so advanced pharmacy, and strive to be admitted to the medical and physical therapy department within 3 months. She said, "Except for acupuncture and some diseases, my other medical skills are still worse than other imperial doctors. In the future, the physical therapy department of the Imperial Hospital will be brought by Xiao Yuan Zheng himself. He is good at many diseases, and his medical skills are even less. Say, you learn from him well." Man Bao didn't miss it, he learned all his skills. Of course, Xiao Yuan Zheng must have a bottom-up medical skill that he only teaches his own children, but this kind of medical skill is not something that you can teach the other party to learn. It is not that if you don't teach it, the other party will not learn well. For the former, please refer to her apprentice Zheng Xiao, and for the latter, refer to her. After talking about the two disciples, she turned her head and said to Dr. Lu, "Sun Yang, you have to learn pharmacy too. You mainly learn acupuncture. In addition, don't forget to learn some pathology. As a doctor, you still have to be able to prescribe, otherwise you will lose your ability to look after the house." Dr. Lu nodded seriously. "Ask me if you don't understand, or you can ask your senior brother. The shopkeeper Zhengda is also very good, so you can ask him." Man Bao found a lot of candidates for Dr. Lu to ask for advice. Dr. Liu's his medical skills are also very good, and you can ask him at home. Seeing Man Bao nod everyone she knew, Lu Yuna couldn't nod her head anymore. She felt that master must have forgotten about people's skills and won't spread the word. However, Man Bao also pointed to Lu Yuna to learn her grandfather's skills. Seeing that she was so shy and embarrassed towards her own grandfather, she couldn't help but teach her, "It's hard for you to ask questions, just think hard in front of your grandfather's study, and when he asks, you can just ask for advice." He added, "By the way, you can copy the prescriptions of the two medicine stickers and take them back. I can't figure it out here, and I can't figure it out there. Take it and ask him, he will definitely be happy." Not to mention Dr. Lu, Zheng Gu, and Zheng Xiao couldn't help but widen their eyes with disbelief. Zheng Gu listened and felt that such behavior was familiar. By the way, wasn't it like this last year when his master first arrived at their capital Ji Shitang? Not only did she like to stand in front of Dr. Ding and worry, she also liked to worry about the Boal Medical Center next door. After a long time, she became acquainted with the doctor next door. Seeing the unbelievable expressions on Zheng Gu and Zheng Xiao's faces, Man Bao said, "You should also learn a little bit. You have to learn all your skills." Zheng Gu couldn't help but whisper, "Is this too thick-skinned?" Zhou Liru, who was beside him, disagreed and said, "How can you be thick-skinned, auntie? No, master also taught them something, which is called mutual benefit. Besides, isn't it normal to ask if you don't understand?" Not only Zheng Gu, Zheng Xiao, and Lu Yunu all looked dazed. Is this normal? The two aunts and nephews nodded together, and Zhou Liru asked curiously, "When you were farming, you didn't know whether it was better to sprinkle beans one by one, or two, wouldn't you ask?" "3 people, we don't farm." Zhou Liru was silent for a while and then asked, "Aren't they all the same?" The 3 shook their heads together, and Man Bao turned his head directly and said to Zhou Liru, "You don't understand, people outside look very important to their craftsmanship, which is different from our village. I'll tell you later." In Qilai village, there are basically no skills that are deep secrets. For example, Xiao Qian's cooking skills are not only taught by her family when they want to learn, but even if the neighbors ask, she will not hide it. Whoever planted the rice this year grew particularly well, whoever harvested the most wheat this year, and how they planted it. Everyone will communicate with each other. Xiao Qian can make tofu. People from the village come to ask her. She never hides it. Some people really can't learn it. Divide the tofu to each family. If you are really lazy and don't even want to exert energy, then you can exchange beans for tofu, which is not expensive anyway. In the past, when Manbao was young, there were many things she couldn't figure out, but with more knowledge, she could understand her parents and elder brothers. In their view, these skills are not very technical, and they are not difficult to learn, so there is no need to hide them and not teach them. But some techniques are different. For example, doing accounting and being a doctor requires a huge amount of time, energy and money, and such skills cannot be easily spread out. But Man Bao, who has been able to learn endless knowledge from the encyclopedia at a small price since he was a child, does not think that knowledge should be hidden and tucked away like this, and teacher Mo also said that academic progress requires communication. Even Mr. Zhuang said that only by discussing the Tao can the Tao go further. Although she knew, Man Bao disagreed, so she kept communicating in her own way. Zhou Liru has never learned these things. Like Zhou Man, her living environment is simple, and she also doesn't understand these things. See you tomorrow. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 1568. Man Bao took out a medical book and gave it to them, saying, "This is a medical book specially for memorizing medicine stickers. You can take it and copy it yourself, and I will give it to the Taiyuan hospital later." The three Zhenggu heard the words and immediately retreated. Then Man Bao took Zhou Liru to whisper, "There are many people with good medical skills in this world, but few are willing to teach all their medical skills to others." She said, "No matter how smart I am, I can't learn all the medical skills. The imperial physicians in the imperial hospital are very powerful, and they all have diseases that they are good at." Zhou Liru said, "My aunt is also very powerful. Now in the capital, they are called my aunt and the little genius doctor. Man Baidao, of course I'm very good, but only in the diseases I am good at. There are many diseases I haven't learned yet." She said, "I still have a lot of medical skills to learn, so do you, but you are just starting now, so you should learn medicine first. After 2 years, you will learn all these. Your brothers and sisters will also gain a firm foothold in the imperial physician office. Now, when the time comes, I will find a way to send you to the imperial physician's office to study." Zhou Liru was surprised. Can I also enter the imperial physician's office?" "Why not?" Zhou Liru asked curiously, "Do you want to be a doctor girl like senior sister?" Man Bao shook his head, "If you want to be an imperial doctor, be a doctor girl. Is there a female imperial doctor?" Man Bao pointed to her nose and looked at her. Zhou Liru suddenly realized, "Yes, my aunt is not only an editor, but also an imperial physician." Zhou Liru thought, "Sure enough, as long as you have the ability." Man Bao nodded fiercely, "Yes, as long as you have the ability, so you have to study hard." Zhou Liru glanced outside and asked in a low voice, "Little aunt, why did you send me to the imperial physician's office?" Man Bao glanced at her and said, "Of course it's the exam, just like Bai Shan and the others taking the national children's supervisor. However, Xiao Yuan Zheng and the others have not yet let go of the female students, but it doesn't matter, I will bring in Imperial Physician Zheng and Imperial Physician Lu. With their help, it is still possible for you to let go of the assessment." Man Bao encouraged her, "So you have to study hard and try to pass the exam once." Zhou Liru was worried, "Will they agree?" Man Bao affirmed, "They will definitely." Man Bao sent both Zheng Gu and Zheng Xiao to the imperial physician's office. Wouldn't the imperial physician agree? On the side of imperial physician Lu, there is a relationship between Dr. Lu and his daughter. Even if he does not support it, he will not oppose it. She will bring in a few more imperial doctors to help. At this time, Zheng Gu, who temporarily copied the book to his junior sister and junior brother, also went to the second floor to look for his father, looking in a daze. "Father, did I just enter the imperial physician's office?" The shopkeeper Zhengde has been very excited for the past 2 days. Ever since his younger brother came back and told him that Zhou Man had already agreed to allow Zheng Gu and Zheng Xiao to enter the imperial medical office, he had been excited. Seeing his son's unpromising appearance, shopkeeper Zhengde hated the iron and said, "I've known this for 2 days, and today your master came to tell you in person. What else can't you believe?" Zheng Gu hesitated. "Master told us just now, let's study hard and try to be admitted to the physical therapy department of medicine as soon as possible." "Of course you have to be admitted to the physical therapy department. Only those from the physical therapy department can enter the Taiyuan hospital and compete for the position of the hospital, do you understand?" "Zheng Gu, father, are we so ambitious?" The shopkeeper Zhengde also slowly recovered. He was silent for a while and then said, "Even if you can't be the head of the hospital, the grade of the physical therapy department in the Thai hospital is always higher than that of acupuncture and pharmacy, right? So you still have to enter the physical therapy department. Division. You know, both acupuncture and pharmacy are only 3 years of study. Physical therapy takes 7 years to study." Shopkeeper Zheng patted his son on the shoulder and said, "Don't belittle yourself. Although you are a little older, you have also learned medical skills for a long time, so you should be no worse than others." Zheng Gu. Speaking of his son's age, the shopkeeper Zhengde began to feel worried. "You are already crowned this year, and you have to start talking about kissing, but this is going to the imperial physician's office. Now the situation of the imperial physician's office is still unknown." Before he was admitted to the physical therapy department, the shopkeeper Zhengde did not want to betroth to him. It's not for the sake of accumulating capital to talk about a better marriage, but it's too distracting for Zheng Gu. All of them came here from young men. When they got married, they would definitely put their minds on their wives and children, and Zheng Gu was at a critical time, so he couldn't be distracted. Shopkeeper Zhengde looked at his son up and down, and made a decisive decision. "Why don't you talk about kissing again in 2 years?" Before Zheng Gu could answer, the shopkeeper Zhengde had already said, "That's it. Anyway, it's okay for a man to get married 2 years later. Unlike ordinary people, doctors rarely let their children get married early, and most men do not discuss marriage until after 20, and it usually takes 1 year from marriage to marriage. And most of the women started talking about kisses when they were in their wives. Many people got married in the 16th or 19th century, and many went out after the 18th or 19th. Like Dr. Lu, she is not too young now, but she is a servant in the palace, and usually she can't leave the palace until she is 20. But she chose to enter the palace, originally to talk about a better marriage." Shopkeeper Zhengde began to think about his son's marriage, and went through the girl's family he knew in his mind, and found that it was not suitable. He remembered something, looked at his son hesitantly and said, "Son, what do you think of your junior sister? Is Lu Sunyang?" Zheng Gu shook his head again and again. "Forget it, with medical skills, I really can't find a word with her. We can't see a doctor outside in the future, and we'll talk about seeing a doctor when we get home." The shopkeeper Zhengde breathed a sigh of relief and nodded again and again. "Yes, you can't take your fancy to Dr. Lu, otherwise I'll have to think about hitting the Mandarin ducks." Zheng Gu was a little curious. "Why?" The shopkeeper Zhengde sighed. "Silly child, you will follow the big house to fight for the position of the head of the family in the future. Dr. Lu is from the Lu family, and their family is closer to the Zhao family of Baikatang, and the imperial Dr. Lu often cooperates with the Zhao family. Our Zheng family will not want a clan wife who is close to the Zhao family. Zheng Gu sighed, my marriage still involves so much. Of course, you are also one of the young masters of the Zheng family. Then why are you asking me, why don't you just find a suitable engagement? I thought I didn't want to? I'm not worried that you will be dissatisfied with the appointment of a kiss. What will you do if you can't give birth to a grandson? The shopkeeper Zheng said angrily, it's also because you're not good enough. You can't even find a girl's family at your age, and you say you're not bad, why can't you? Zheng Gu, who is afraid that I can't learn, 6 hours out of 12 hours a day standing on the cabinet. It can be said that apart from eating and sleeping, Zheng Gu spends all his time in the pharmacy. Apart from men, the only people who come here to see a doctor are girls under the age of 12 and married women. Where can he go? Zheng Gu turned around angrily and left. Next update around 6 p.m. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 1569. The shopkeeper Zhengda ordered from behind, don't waste your studies during this time. Zheng Gu went downstairs angrily, and as soon as he got to the lobby, he saw a girl standing in front of the medicine cabinet curiously staring at their medicine cabinet. Zheng Gu felt that she looked familiar, so he stepped forward and asked, do you want to see a doctor or buy medicine? Zhou Lejun turned to look at Zheng Gu, the two met. Zheng Gu recognized her and said with a smile, is Miss Zhou looking for master or fourth junior sister? Lejun smiled and said, I've been looking for them all. I didn't see my aunt in the lobby. Zheng Gu smiled and said, master and fourth junior sister are in the backyard, please. After that, he led Zhou Lejun to the backyard. The two have met. Last year when the Zhuji restaurant opened, the shopkeeper Zhengda brought a large group of people to congratulate them. At that time, the two met each other, and then met several times, but they were not familiar with each other. Zheng Gu led Zhou Lejun to the backyard. Man Bao was testing Zhou Liru's identification of medicinal materials. When Lejun came over, he distracted and asked Zhou Liru to identify medicinal materials, why are you here? Zhou Lejun followed her sister's clever identification of medicinal materials, and stood beside her aunt and said, the fourth uncle sent a letter back, and the fifth uncle asked me to deliver it to the aunt. Zhou Lejun carefully looked at the backyard of Ji Shitang, especially the medicinal herbs drying in the dustpan on the shelf, and said with bright eyes, also, you didn't say last time, Auntie, you will teach us how to make rouge and antidote when you are free next time. Sour cream. Last time, during the holiday, Bai Dalan sent a letter to his house, and Man Bao sent the rouge and the sore relieving cream that he brought back from the palace to the servants of the Bai family. Even Mr. Fang and Mr. Lu got a bottle. Zhou Lejun and Zhou Liru were very curious and rubbed a little on their faces and hands. Within 2 days, the bottle of Saturday Lang's sore relieving cream arrived in Zhou Lejun's hands. Although Man Bao said that the materials used in these 2 bottles of ointment were a bit expensive, Zhou Lejun felt that the noble ladies in the capital might dislike everything, but it was impossible to dislike being expensive. She is someone who has sold them 2 taels of silver and a flower but only wears it for 1 day. This ointment is so small that 5 taels of silver can last for almost a month. Would those noble girls not use it? That's right, Zhou Lejun even calculated the price. Of course, this was also the cost that Man Bao had calculated for her to make a large jar of ointment. Zhou Lejun, who has been with the 4th and 5th uncles for the past 2 years, knows that the cost of labor has to be counted. She felt that the 4th and 5th aunts had to make ointments while taking care of the children, so she raised the labor cost a lot. So she not only came to deliver the letter, but also urged her sister-in-law to buy the medicinal materials quickly. Do it early, make money early. Man Bao finally remembered this incident, wrote a prescription to Zheng Gu and asked him to help him get the medicine, and then opened the letter from the fourth brother. Zhou Lejun had seen it in advance, and he sat on a chair beside him and said, "Fourth uncle said in a letter that he followed someone to the grassland. That's why Friday Lang was so anxious to let her send the letter." Man Bao swiped through the letter with one eye and 10 lines. The letter was rewritten by Zhou Li, the big head, and it was written in great detail. He told Man Bao and a few people that after he and his fourth uncle took the porcelain to Xiaohu to shoot, they met the person in the bald department, and they also touched when they arrived at Xiangmingxiu. The people from the bald department invited their uncle and nephew to go to the grassland, saying that the medicinal materials they wanted to buy were more on the grassland, and the grassland was cheaper. It happened that Xiangmingxiu was also going to the grassland, so he went with them. The fourth uncle and him thought about it, and they all felt that with the acquaintance of Xiangmingxiu, they could go for a walk on the grassland, and now the weather is hot, and the grassland is cooler. Anyway, these medicinal materials are not in a hurry, so just left with the people from the bald department. But they were afraid that they would wait at home for a long time, so they wrote a letter to the trustee to bring them back, so that they could feel at ease. Datu also quietly told them in the letter that Xiangmingxiu went to the grassland to do business, and he knew several people on the grassland. Man Bao didn't worry about them anymore, folded the letter and said, "I also want to go to the grassland." Zhou Lejun knew that she would say this, "Auntie will definitely be worried." She glanced outside, got up and said, "Little aunt, shall I go see your apprentice to get medicine?" "What's so good about taking medicine?" "It's not good to catch the medicine, but it looks good if the medicine can be used to make money." Zhou Lejun ran out, and she still wanted to discuss with Ji Shitang, if she often buys medicinal materials from them, can it be cheaper for her? It happened that shopkeeper Zhengde was also there, so the two of them were leaning on the counter and waiting for Zhenggu to pick up the medicine while chatting. Shopkeeper Zhengde was very interested in Zhou Lejun's arrival. "What kind of medicine is this?" Zhou Lejun was not defensive, and smiled, "It's the moisturizing rouge and sore cream that my sister-in-law just figured out. People use the color well." The shopkeeper Zhengde remembered the well-selling plaster recipe given by Zhou Man. His eyes brightened, he glanced at the amount of medicine his son had taken, and asked with a smile, "Why, your family wants to sell it yourself?" Zhou Lejun said, "We're just having fun. Since Dr. Zhou Xiao is here, I can definitely do it." The shopkeeper Zhengde said with a smile, "If you make it, you have to sell it. You can see that there are people coming and going in my pharmacy, why don't you put it on my consignment?" "How?" Zhou Lejun's eyes flashed, and he asked with a smile, "Why didn't shopkeeper Zheng ask my aunt?" The shopkeeper Zhengde said, "Your sister-in-law doesn't care about this kind of thing. When it comes to business, it's better to talk about it clearly. Zhou Man doesn't care much about this kind of thing. If he mentions it, she can give him the recipe directly with a big wave of her hand, and let him produce the medicinal materials and sell them back for her to share. Of course, this is not bad, but just because it is too good, and this kind of favor owes another one, it is not good for the future relationship between the two parties. And it's not easy to mention the treasurer Zhengde, but it's different for Zhou Lejun. He knew that the account of their Zhou family was in the hands of this little girl. The last time he went to drink housewarming wine, she remembered the ceremony. He likes to talk about medicine with doctors and business with businessmen. Well, Zhou Man, that's fine, he would rather wait for Zhou Man to return to Beijing to talk about it, and he definitely wouldn't ask Zhou Man to do this business in a confused way at this time. Zhou Man, regardless of how much you take advantage of her now, in the future you will definitely have to let her take it back twice, or she will definitely have more good things in her hand that you will regret. So it's better to be clear when talking about business. Zhou Lejun seems to be a clear person. Of course Zhou Lejun knew it, the abacus in her heart was already pounding. So, Zhenggu was focusing on the medicine, and Zhou Lejun had already negotiated with the shopkeeper Zhengda about the method of consignment, and even negotiated the discount rate for the purchase of medicinal materials in the future. Zhenggu looked at them back and forth, couldn't help but looked at his father, then looked at Zhou Lejun, shook his head, turned around and continued to grab the medicine. When Man Bao came out, the two of them had already negotiated contentedly, and Zhenggu bundled the packaged medicinal materials and put them on the counter for Zhou Lejun. Zhou Lejun took out the money from his purse to settle the bill, and then left with Man Bao happily carrying the medicinal materials. So happy. Zhou Lejun nodded, and then said, "Little aunt, shopkeeper Zhengde gave me another 10% discount on the medicinal materials for your sake." Man Bao was surprised. "He won't lose money, right?" Zhou Lejun said, "No, I have seen the purchase price of some medicinal materials from the fourth uncle. Although he looks sore, it is definitely not a loss." Man Bao was relieved. "If you don't lose money, bargain hard, it's your ability." Changed place today, so it's a bit late, next update around 9 p.m. But I'm going home, I can add more. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 1570. After getting Manbao, Zhou Lejun felt more at ease, and already planned how to do this business. When they got home, Manbao took out the package of medicinal materials, reweighed them, and then taught them to make the ointment. Lu was the quickest to get started. She had never cooked ointment, but she had cooked herbs before, and she had also cooked concoctions, so she knew how to master all kinds of heat. Basically, as soon as Man Bao said she understood, Fang Shi was a little slower, but not worse than the two princesses Mingda, so she could also learn. Zhou Lejun knew that he had no talent for cooking, so he kept squatting aside and didn't dare to get started easily. After all, this medicinal material is not cheap, what if she breaks it? But looking at her, she figured out the taste. This is medicine, and it doesn't pay attention to the taste. It is better to wipe it on the face. There is no such concern at all. Moreover, even if she couldn't make the medicine well, there was no problem in pounding the herbs, so she rolled up her sleeves and stepped forward to help. When Mr. Zhuang and the other two apprentices walked here, they saw fireworks in the kitchen. Man Bao and Zhou Lejun were sitting in the shadow of the corridor pounding medicinal herbs. The reason for the two is very realistic. The kitchen is hot, and they don't want to cook in it. Fang Shi and Lu Shi, who were in charge of cooking the ingredients and didn't dare to relax, were in the kitchen. When Liutu was the most naughty and mischievous, he took his two younger brothers to make trouble for Manbao and them. One grabbed the medicinal materials, and the other had to make the medicine himself. After being beaten twice by Zhou Lejun, he was honest. Seeing them sitting on the ground obediently with their heads lowered, Man Bao felt a little soft-hearted. Just as he was wondering if he should play with them, Mr. Zhuang and the others came over. He looked at the two of them curiously. "What are you doing?" Bai Shan just glanced at it and said, "Are you making the ointment you gave your sixth brother?" Man Bao nodded, explained the benefits of this ointment to Mr. Zhuang in detail, and asked, "Sir, would you like a bottle?" Mr. Zhuang didn't understand the use of this ointment, so he shook his head and refused. Bai Erlang was very moved. "I want a bottle." Bai Shan also said, "I want it too." Man Bao was curious, "What are you doing here?" Bai Shandao, "Your six brothers have them, why can't we have them?" "My sixth brother has sores on his face, do you have any?" Bai Shan sat on the railing and said to her, "Didn't you say that it also has the effect of beauty, and it doesn't have to be a sore?" Bai Erlang, "That's right." After thinking about it, he felt that he couldn't forget his brother, so he said, "Bring me a bottle too." Zhou Lejun couldn't bear it anymore. He reached out to the two of them and said, "Give me the money." Man Bao, "That's right, I'll do it for you if you give me the money." Bai Erlang immediately looked at Bai Shan. Bai Shan thought about it and then said, give it if you give it, but we have such a relationship. You don't want to make money from us, do you? What is the cost? Mr. Zhuang sat aside and watched them silently. Man Bao turned to look at Zhou Lejun. She hadn't calculated the cost, but she remembered that Lejun did. Lejun thought for a while and then said, okay, I'll charge you the cost, just 2 taels of silver a bottle. Bai Shan was stunned for a moment, feeling a little bit of pain. Is the cost so expensive? Zhou Lejun, little uncle, I have to make a good porcelain vase later, it's very expensive. We don't need to get us a very good porcelain bottle, just use a wooden jar full of treasures. Man Bao was about to nod his head, but Zhou Lejun had already refused. No, we must use the same porcelain vase we take out. Bai Shan looked at her suspiciously. You don't want us to help you take out, do you? Zhou Lejun looked at his face and said, no, as long as the little uncle says that you are using the ointment made by our family. By the way, you have to change the name. This rouge and sore ointment don't sound good. Zhou Lejun wanted to take Man Bao to name him, but when he saw Mr. Zhuang in the wrong eye, he immediately stabbed his aunt to see Mr. Zhuang. Man Bao also looked up at Mr. Zhuang. Mr. Zhuang immediately turned his head and said, the sun today is quite big, and the sun has been very big recently. Bai Shan laughed out loud and said, don't be too hard on you, sir. After thinking about it, he said to Zhou Lejun, if you really want a good name, I will show you the way. He smiled and said, go to my mother, she will definitely get it out for you. Yes, look for Aunt Zheng. Man Bao finally remembered, and said to Zhou Lejun, Aunt Zheng's name is very nice. You see, she names the flowers and plants in the garden, and she never has the same name. Bai Shan said to Man Bao, she also likes the ointment you gave my mother. It's no wonder that Aunt Zheng looks a little prettier when I come home this time. Although this is true, it always gives the impression that she is complimenting the ointment. Man Bao was tired of pounding the herbs, so he shoved the medicine hammer into Bai Shan's hand and asked him to help. Bai Shan sat down in her place, and soon he was sweating. They also arrived in Beijing this time last year, and it was not as hot as it is now. Mr. Zhuang looked up at the sky slightly. Of course, it was impossible to face the sun directly. He was not stupid, but just by looking at the almost white sunlight in the sky, he knew how hot the sun was. He was a little worried. I heard that there was a flood in Shenzhou, but it hasn't rained for more than a month in the capital. The weather this year is a bit weird. Several other people also raised their heads slightly to look at the bright sun in the air. Bai Shan is also worried. I'm afraid there will be a major disaster this year. I just hope there will be no man-made disaster. Man Bao, it's very difficult. Whether it's excess heat or floods, it's easy to cause epidemics. Bai Erlang, it's halfway through this year. Seeing how hot it is now, isn't this already a disaster? Zhou Lejun was worried about his family. I don't know how my family is doing now, I just hope that our Lujiang County will be fine. Liudu can already talk a lot, so he immediately said, Shun. Zhou Lejun stretched out his hand and squeezed his face with a smile. It doesn't matter what you say, it's just what my aunt said. My aunt, you are the reincarnation of a fairy, tell me quickly. Man Bao. Mr. Zhuang and Bai Shan. Bai Erlang has always been skeptical about this statement, and is dubious. Seeing Zhou Lejun mention it again, he looked at Man Bao openly and asked, are you really a reincarnation of a fairy? Man Bao, if I really know, even if I say no, that's fine. Bai Erlang thought it was true, but he couldn't help but be curious. Since he couldn't ask Man Bao, he went to ask Bai Shan, do you think she is? Bai Shan poured out the pounded medicine and silently glanced at Bai Erlang. Mr. Zhuang had a headache, called him and said, Bai hasn't come back until now. It's hot now, don't let him stay outside for a long time, you can find him back. Bai Erlang was taken aback for a moment and then asked, my eldest brother is an adult, so he shouldn't suffer from heat stroke. Lixu and the others are still outside. Li Shui and the others went to the bookstore, and Bai Ji went to the banquet. What's the difference? Mr. Zhuang said, he shouldn't have gone out to the banquet in this weather. See you tomorrow.